Hello, Master Gardeners. I'm in a yard of one of our Master Gardeners, and I'm in here with an entertaining little crew over here. Hello, how is everybody? So these goats are here for a special purpose. They're here for weed control. So goats are fascinating little agile, curious little animals. They've been jumping all over me. I'm sure they'll be butting me in a minute for this nice little video, but they brought them in on this particular property to do weed control. So why are they having goats? Well, it's actually one of the more inexpensive ways to get weed control in your yard. And what do they eat? They eat a lot of different types of plants, and not just the plant, but they'll actually eat the woody stems. Why are they, excuse me, who is that? Don't bite my ear. Why are they here? There's a watershed down next to us, which is a little bit more sensitive area. So therefore the customer would like to avoid using chemicals that might run off into the stream. They want to avoid a lot of heavy equipment for any kind of erosion. So they're beginning for their weed control to just use goats. When you hire your goats, they usually partition them off in a small area. They put them in a fence. The purpose of the fence is to keep any coyote out and to keep the goats in. Even so, they are escape artists and they'll find their way out of most places. This one happens to be an electrified fence. You usually pay by the number of goats that you have. They're getting playful here. They usually, in 1 month, 6 goats can clear an acre. So what are they here to eat? Well, he just grabbed this out of my hand. Hello there, go find your own food. This is Bittersweet. They like eating bittersweet. Oh, he prefers grape. I've got wild grape here. Would you like a bite of grape, little buddy? Have some grape. So they've got grapes. They've got some blackberries. I've got some wineberries inside of here. And they're even eating Multiflora Rose. This is not the invasive one, but it is a rose. Check that out. Just didn't faze him one bit to eat those thorns. So they'll eat about anything. Interesting thing about goats, this is probably a La Mancha goat. I would assume both males and females have these horns. Did you know the difference between a horn and an antler is an antler is shed every year, whereas a horn is a permanent structure that's kept on their head? And I believe these guys have hollow ones. You can see he looks earless. He's kind of referred to as a earless goat, even though he really does have ears. And what I found out, an interesting fact today, is they have bottom incisor teeth and they have molars for chewing on the bottom, but on the top of their mouth, they just have a dental plate. And that dental plate allows them to grip and tear foliage a lot better. You wouldn't believe how beautifully they've done already in the first partition that they cleared for the first 3 days. And they eat all the foliage off the vines. So you might ask, well, is it really killing the plants? No, only if it's going to be heavily grazed. If you're hiring goats, you have to hire them in the spring and the midsummer for weed control. So timing is critical. And they're not really killing everything as much as they're grazing everything down. And then as we get into the summer season, the stress of it being in a drought region, they may die down. Some of your foliage will probably die back. But you're gonna have to follow up with another program for permanent removal and control. But at least this knocks down. You usually want taller goats to do your grazing because as you can see, they'll climb the trees. Who wants to climb the tree for me? Come on, come here little buddy. Hey, yo dude, anybody wanna climb the tree? Come here, show them how you like to jump up in the trees. Who wants to jump up and get my, you wanted it before. Come here, get up here in the tree. Anybody? So goats are so much fun to play with. Oh, look, everybody gets a bite now. Everybody gets a bite of the carrots. So this is an interesting business to be in. Of course, the owner has to have liability insurance, and then they have to come in and prepare the property for the correct type of fencing to make sure their goats are protected. Then they provide an evening den in which the goats can get inside for the nighttime to make sure nobody's hurting them in that way. Then they have to make sure they're providing water and oftentimes the salt lick. But they have a very varied diet. When they start grazing, you might be able to see here, here's about their browse line. You often see this in the woods when you're around deer and animals. There's browse lines. In Africa, the giraffe browse line is like really high. I'll never forget the first time I saw that. But here's the browse line because they've eaten off of the foliage off of this tree. So there's a line at which they're gonna stop. And they eat the top down because they prefer to eat the higher foliage and then they'll graze down to the ground. And once they've cleared this new area, they've just been in this new spot for about 24 hours. Once they get this cleared out, they're going to continue to move the electric fence up along the hedgerow. So it's fun. It's been very entertaining for the master gardener who lives right next to him, watching the little ones fight. All of them with their little horns will bump into each other. So what an entertaining way. So if you've got some invasive weeds that you want controlled, maybe you need to think about look into getting some goats. It'll be fun.